Please welcome Chief Operating Officer at iNACOL, Bruce Friend.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon, for spending a good part of your week with us, for the sharing and networking that's taking place. It is truly, on behalf of the entire staff of iNACOL, I get the pleasure of saying thank you on behalf of our staff for coming here and spending this week with us. We are truly, truly appreciative. Thank you for the work that you're doing back at your schools and in your districts. As our keynotes this morning and yesterday mentioned as well, it's not easy work. And we even know that you coming here for 2 or 3 days is a sacrifice. And again, we truly appreciate you taking the time to spend your valuable time with us. While I'm in the thanking mood, I'd also like to thank organizations that help us put on this event this year and in years past as well. For many of them, they've been committed to our work as well in terms of helping personalize learning and helping you with the resources you need at your schools and districts as well. So let me begin by starting with thanking our diamond sponsors, Excelis, Arizona State University Prep Digital, Better Lesson, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, eDynamic Learning, Gemini, New Schools Venture Fund, and the Walton Family Foundation. I'd also like to thank our Emerald sponsors, Apex Learning, Blackboard, Dreambox Learning, Edgenuity, Edmentum, Florida Virtual School, Maui Learning, Pearson, Strong Mind, and also our Topaz sponsors, Canvas, Edison Learning, Fuel Education, Genius, Global Learning Academies, It's Learning, Odysseyware, KnowledgeWorks, Reading Horizons, Read Speaker, Rosetta Stone, Schoology, Squiggly Park, and Zia Learning. Please give me a round of the hand for our sponsors. We thank them very, very much. As I stand up here too, I'm going to thank some folks that weren't on the script. I'm going to go off script just a second. I want to thank the parents, and in some cases I think grandparents, of the students that are going to be with us here shortly. Thank you for taking time to, I'm sure it was a hard sell, right, to get them out of school, come to Disney for a few days, but I know many of you took off time from work to be here. We are so appreciative for you allowing us to learn from your students. So thank you to all the parents and the grandparents as well. Before we start our keynote student panel, we do each year like to recognize excellence in the field of personalized learning. Again, this year we received a record number of nominations in the 2 categories that we are going to honor today. Before our 2017 recipients are recognized, I do wish though to thank the iNACOL Awards Committee. Many of them are out in this audience today. They're anonymous. That's by design. But it is an army of volunteers that have helped us put this awards committee together, who reviewed just dozens and dozens and dozens of nominations. And without our army of volunteers for the awards committee, we could not have this program. So I want to thank the awards committee members as well. For those that are in the room, you know who you are. Thank you very much. Our first award today is to be given out for the outstanding individual contribution to personalized learning. This award recognizes work that spans many years, not a single project. Our recipient of the 2017 Outstanding Individual Contribution to Personalized Learning Award is Sean Rubin. Got a fan club. To anyone who knows Sean, he is a force. He is relentless in the pursuit to change the educational system in an effort to provide equity, access, and quality, especially for those in underserved urban populations. From his days as a founding faculty member at a small urban school in Rhode Island, Sean has always been an educator whose guiding principle was to balk tradition. In 2002, he took his unorthodox style to Highlander Institute, forever changing that organization by promoting the power of personalized learning. Today, the Institute influences the work of over 67 schools and school districts with customized learning, personalized learning implementation plans. Sean's contributions to the educational landscape over the past 2 decades are far too expansive for me to share all of them with you today. I encourage you to learn more about Sean and his work by attending the breakout session we have at 4 o'clock this afternoon, where both Innovator Award recipients will be acknowledged. Please join me in congratulating Sean Rubin, recipient of the 2017 Individual Contribution Award.
Wow. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Susan. Thank you to the awards committee. I really want to start by just calling out the inaccuracy of the name of this award of individual contribution. There's really no such thing as an individual achievement in education innovation. All this work is done on the shoulders of other people. There's never been a truly transformative work in this space that did not take a team of people to execute, and I'm lucky to work at the Highlander Institute. As an organization, I believe we're second to none with regard to education design, implementation, and continuous improvement. We are lucky to be led by an incredible director and my partner in crime, Dana Borelli Murray. And at this table right up front, we have an incredible team of Rhode Islanders. We have the director of the Office of Innovation. We've got the State Department of Education. We've got Maeve Murray and Michael Klein representing a team of 25. We have Fuse Fellows, board members. I can't even go through the number of people in the state that are able to collaborate and work together to make this possible. I'll leave you with one final note as we prepare for today's student panel. There are no stock solutions to the problems and challenges that our students are facing in school. We have glimpses every day of success, and we can see some pathways forward, but we are still in the very early and messy days of this work. To move forward faster, we must give our students their own voice and power within the design and implementation of this system. Today we have a student panel, and you should listen closely, but if you're struggling with your own blended or personalized implementation back in your home district or state, try bringing more students to the table. Try asking a struggling student what they appreciate or don't appreciate with regard to the tasks that they've been assigned. Education should never be a forced labor, and if that's what it feels like in your school or program, then you're doing something wrong. If you're rolling out new blended and personalized learning models, platforms, or curriculum, talk to and ask questions of your students every single day. All students, but especially those marginalized and unengaged. I really want to thank you for the opportunity to stand up here, but more importantly, I thank you for the opportunity to recognize the incredible people that I have the luxury of working for and working with every single day. I cannot mention them all by name. The partner organizations nationally and locally, the funders that have been there to support our work, we appreciate you more than I can ever say through words. Thank you to iNACOL for a fantastic convening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your conference and safe travels home. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Our second award will be given out to the iNACOL Teacher of the Year. This award honors excellence in teaching within a personalized learning environment. This year's winner of the iNACOL Teacher of the Year Award is Rachel Moolah from East Pennsboro, Pennsylvania School District at middle school. Rachel is a personalized learning coach. She's an innovation change agent. She's a mentor. She's an educational leader. And that's in addition to being a 7th grade English language arts teacher at East Pennsboro Middle School. Ms. Moolah's students know that their learning will never be sacrificed for the sake of adhering to a traditional schedule or confined to what the hands of a clock say. As one of her students shared with us in the nomination process, she challenges us to think critically. A lot of times students get caught up in making sure they get the question right. Ms. Moolah helps us become more analytical and deeper thinkers, and she values our thoughts. Rachel commented in her own nomination video, "I'm so confident that personalizing learning is doing right by students, that my only concern is for those who might fear that the change and will deter their progress." Rachel, in your interview, you spoke about leaving a legacy. You mentioned you did not need for people to remember your name, your achievements, but rather you wanted your legacy to be visible in the community that you shape. On behalf of iNACOL, though, we are going to recognize you and your achievements. We do wish to acknowledge your achievements and thank you for being a role model for your colleagues, your community, and especially for your students. I encourage you again to learn more about Rachel at our breakout session at 4 o'clock. She will be with Sean and have a chance to interact and learn from both of them. Please welcome Rachel Moolah.
Thank you so much for everybody who has made this possible. As a classroom teacher in a public school district, it's kind of unreal to have recognition like this. Just that somebody was able to see something in me worth shedding some light on. It really means so much. I have 2 little babies back home with my husband who don't quite understand yet how doing this work is a manifestation of love for them, for the future, and for all of the kids that we teach and mentor every day. The journey towards transformative teaching and learning at our little public school was born out of the purposeful initiative of a lot of people. The work is so hard, and it is tough to be a pioneer. There are 1,000 reasons why the dream of personalization won't work in public schools, but here we are. I'm truly honored for the recognition, but this represents the unbelievable courage, tenacity, faith, and heartfelt dedication of the team of educators that I've been blessed to work with. It is not mine, it is ours. The visionaries, the change makers, the trailblazers who have all allowed me to play a part in shattering the status quo over and over and over. To Greg, Mike, Eric, and the ones that we had to leave back home, you inspire me, you challenge me, and you have made me so much better. I hope that in turn, I'm able to return the favor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's keep going.
Thank you, Rachel. Again, thank you, Sean. Congratulations, and we look forward to having some time with you later this afternoon. So, to state this as simply as I can, the next group of panelists, they're why we're here. They are who we work for. They are who we should be working with. Their voices not only deserve to be heard, they must be heard. Facilitating our student panel today, we're very honored to have Ulcca Joshi Hansen from Education Reimagined. Ulcca is the Associate Director for National Outreach and Community Building for Education Reimagined, an initiative of the Convergence Center for Policy Resolution. A first-generation college student, Ulcca completed a BA in Early Childhood and Elementary Education with a focus on special education at Drew University. She taught at Newark Public Schools before earning her PhD at Oxford University and a Juris Doctorate from Harvard Law School. Ulcca is the author of the Third Rail blog and a forthcoming book, The Future of Smart, which explores how our school-centered education systems and decade of reform efforts have prevented us from realizing the unique potential of all students. Please join me in welcoming Ulcca and our student panelists.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for spending part of the afternoon. I know it's tough. We're coming up right after lunch, but I can't imagine anything more inspiring than being able to spend time with these 5 learners today. As my bio said, I started as a teacher, and I realized in thinking about learner-centered education that as a first-generation English language learner student, I benefited from teachers who did learner-centered in a way that I wasn't aware of, and it was so different from what I was asked to do as a teacher. And so my journey through research and writing has brought me to to Education Reimagined, which is an initiative of the Convergence Center for Policy Resolution. And in 2012, Convergence brought together a group of 28 ideologically diverse leaders. They came from education, from business, industry, unions, communities, and they came together knowing that they had very strong disagreements about how to fix education, but they did share a common belief that the current system wasn't designed to help all children succeed, and I think we've heard speakers talk about how it was actually designed to do the opposite, and it wasn't developed to develop the types of skills that we know kids need to know and have to succeed. So this 18-month dialogue culminated in a document that laid out a fundamentally different vision of education in this country, and we call that learner-centered education. And Education Reimagined works to accelerate the shift to learner-centered education in this country to the point where it becomes inevitable and irreversible, and as Paul suggested this morning about what success looks like, available to every single learner in our public education system. Now, learner-centered education fits into that category of terms that Susan and other people have identified, that people use terms to talk about very different things. So before our panelists start, I wanted to take a minute to provide you a sense of what we mean when we say learner-centered education, because all of our panelists today come from schools that are thinking and talking about learner-centered education in this very particular way. Now, the first distinction we make is about the paradigm or the mindset of learner-centeredness. We don't believe that learner-centered is a system or a structure or a set of actions. It's a mindset. It's a totally different way of thinking about learning, of being with learners, and thinking about the purpose of education. The current system of school is school-centered. It sits inside a larger paradigm that a lot of us talk about when we say the industrial model, where the components of the system are designed for efficiency of educational delivery. It strives towards standardization, right, which lets us sort and rank kids. And inside the school-centered paradigm, we believe we've had decades of trying to reform and innovate on that system. So we think a lot of what goes on today that's called reform and innovation is actually attempting to reform and innovate inside of this school-centered paradigm. So on the other hand, we have a learner-centered paradigm, and this approach to education leaves behind the idea of one teacher with 18 kids or one teacher with 25 kids, and instead it's about networks of individuals who are coming together, young learners, older learners, that are building networked learning opportunities, and it's designed to be adaptable. It's designed to be that way because kids are different and have different needs and strengths and need different things. So we believe this shift from a school-centered to a learner-centered paradigm is fairly binary. You can't reform or innovate from one paradigm into the other because they're fundamentally different ways of being in relationship to the work of education. Think of it as a car. You can tinker with a car all you want, but it's not going to take you to the moon because of its structural limitations. Now, once you're inside of the learner-centered paradigm, we distinguish 5 design elements that we think emerge naturally. So these terms are going to be really familiar, but we see that the ways in which these happen in learner-centered environments are really different from how they're implemented inside of school-centered environments. The first is learner agency, the idea that learning is the work of learners. We can't do it for them, we can't do it to them. Every learner needs to own, direct, and determine their unique learning pathway in a way that meets their needs. The second is socially embedded, and that has 2 parts to it. The first is that learning is a social endeavor, meaning it's not something anyone does alone. We learn through engagement with others. Young learners learn with and from each other. Older learners work together in what we think of as communities of practice, and then old and young learners learn together. And the second piece of it is that learner-centered education is deeply relational, not just for the purpose of learning, but allowing, as we've heard people talking about, allowing each person to bring their whole self into the environment and be recognized. The third element is personalized, relevant, and contextualized. And the reason we put these 3 together is because we think they can't be separated. We often personalize in the sense that learning is self-paced or it's appropriate to a student's academic level. But when we do this, we do it with content that's often irrelevant or unimportant to a learner. And so that's not learner-centered. Personalized, relevant, and contextualized means that a learner's own passions, their strengths, their needs, their family, their culture, their community, their background are the starting point for thinking about and building the knowledge, the skills, and the dispositions that are meaningful for that learner. The fourth element is open-walled, and this is about the idea that learning isn't restricted to the walls of a building. It happens all the time. Summer camps, jobs, family travel, internships, students who come from families where they speak multiple languages or have different international backgrounds. These are all learning opportunities. The skills, knowledges, and dispositions that learners need can and are developed in all sorts of places. And so the last element is competency-based. And that's because learner-centered is open-walled. It's personalized, relevant, and contextualized, and because learners have agency in determining pathways. What and when something is learned isn't about an age or a grade. It's not about specific coursework or a predetermined trajectory. So these 5 elements are interrelated, and we see different learner-centered environments engage with them in a range of ways, and this is probably going to become clear as our learners talk about their environments today. So before I introduce our panelists, I want to invite you to choose how you're going to think about the next 50 minutes. This could either be an uplifting but really token interlude with 5 learners who have engaging and interesting stories. You could see them as exceptional, but not let them challenge your view of learners. Or this could be a chance to hear from 5 people who have insights into how they learn and how their learning environments support them to be owners of their learning. It could be an opportunity to listen to them as 5 partners in the design process. So starting from my left, we have Kiana Griffin. Kiana, and next to her is Jada Rollins. They are both students at Summit Elementary School in the Macomb School District. Summit is the launch pad for a district-wide initiative to implement what the district calls mindset shift into world class. At Summit, learners are met where they are, and they're supported to accelerate the development of their knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Jada's bio tells us she's a 10-year-old 5th grader. She lives with her parents, Zimlist Harris and Effie Rollins, and 2 siblings. When not in school, she enjoys shopping, and her favorite subjects are reading and doing crafts, and Jada plans to be an actress when she grows up. Kiana is 11 years old and in 6th grade. She was born in Natchez, Mississippi. She lives with her parents and grandmother, has 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and 2 dogs, Black and Curly. Her hobbies are playing the piano and guitar, sports, reading, singing, and drawing. Her favorite subject is science. Her favorite author is Jeff Kinney, and her favorite singer is Sabrina Carpenter. And in the future, she wants to be a veterinarian. Next to them in the middle is Jamar Lee. Jamar was born and raised in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. He's a junior in high school and attends Iowa Big. Iowa Big uses learner passion to drive deep learning and deliver core academic credits, engage learners in authentic community projects, problems, and opportunities, and connects them deeply to the people and resources of the Cedar Rapids Tech Corridor. Jamar is a firm believer that education needs to be restructured for the benefit of learners to make sure they enjoy their learning and fully succeed. Next to him, we have Icon Carcalsa. She attends school in Lindsay, USD in California. In 2007, I think many of you know that Lindsay engaged their entire community in reimagining their local education system. And 10 years later, it's a national example of learner-centered transformation. They focus on involving, engaging with, and listening to the voice of the learner at every step of their journey. Ikonkar is the oldest in her family and has 2 younger sisters. She has experienced the traditional schooling system where she's been a victim to racism and was pushed back as she's tried to open her wings in her own learning. Now she's a senior at Lindsay High School and has been a leader in taking charge of her own learning and being involved in the project-based system. Her future goal is to pursue a career in criminal justice and psychology and to become a behavioral analyst. And next we have Vanilla Tatwija. I hope I got that right. Vanilla is a Community 9 learner at Pike Road School in Pike Road, Alabama. Pike Road Schools is in its 2nd year of operation and has been focused on creating a learning environment where youth are recognized as and developed into lifelong learners who use their knowledge, skills, and influence to make the world a better place. Vanilla was part of a magnet program in Cincinnati, Ohio until the winter of 2015 when she moved to Pike Road, Alabama during her 8th grade year. And her interests include reading, writing, playing the clarinet, and soccer. Following in her parents' footsteps, she wants to pursue a career in health science, and currently she participates in the school's biomedical academy to help her get on track for her future. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. So I would like to start, and I apologize, I mixed up vanilla and iConcar, but I am going to start with iConcar, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to just tell us, all of you have been in traditional systems, are now in learner-centered environments. Can you just tell us about your journey to where you are now and why it matters to you that you're there?
So my story starts off where K through 6th grade, I was in the traditional system. I was pushed back every time I was in class. When I passed my test, I wanted to go ahead, and I wanted my materials so I could do it at home. And I was pushed back saying that I'm not allowed to do that. I can only get the next material in next class, and I was never able to open my wings. And now, when I went to high school, I was open to so many different opportunities, and I get to open my wings, and I know what I'm doing. And here today, we're here to share our own learner perspective of how personalized learning helps us. And it's very important because we need to create leaders who can change and make the future better for us. We cannot make robots in schools who can only sit down in class, just do tests and write papers and papers and papers, but don't know how to talk in front of people, don't have citizenship skills to talk to anybody else or care for their community. So that's why we're here today and talk about our learner perspective.
For me, I've been in the traditional school system since I was in kindergarten all the way to like a quarter of 8th grade, and I was never really bothered by it. I was doing okay in the traditional school system. So when I moved to Pike Row and I went to a school that was student-centered, it was unfamiliar to me, and I didn't really like it because I didn't understand it. So I didn't really do well in the beginning, but as I continued to go there and I got more familiar with it, I began to understand what it was really about and what PBL learning was supposed to do. To me, student-centered learning is letting the students take control of how they learn. It gives them a voice so that they can tell the teachers, this is how I learn best, and so that the teachers understand that the way that they were doing it before wasn't working for everyone. So they have to kind of change up so that specific students can get the materials they need to learn the way that they do best. And they, like hearing the other stories from the students here right now and the students from my school, I realized that they struggle because traditional schools wasn't teaching them how they should learn best. It was just teaching them standards and telling them this is how you're supposed to do it, so do it. It wasn't telling them like this is what you're supposed to learn, so find a way that you learn best, do it in your own way and show who you are through that. And so now I understand student-centered learning, and I enjoy learning the way I am right now because I'm learning the way I do best. I will learn best, and I'm learning more, and I'm growing, not only like with educationally, but mentally, like emotionally. I'm more mature because I know more about myself, and yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to take us off track a little bit. I want to thank all of you for coming out, because this is overly inspiring as a learner to see so many educators and leaders working for a change that has affected my life so much. So thank you all for working for that. Back to the matter at hand. My journey through the traditional education system was very rough. Very long story short, I felt trapped and without purpose. I did not like having a relationship with my educators. I didn't like having to reach a certain standard of success. And that led me to become a very rebellious and misbehaved student. And as early as elementary, I would shut down, refuse to do my work. And naturally, consequences would happen. It'd be getting my recess taken away, eating lunch in the office cubby. But as time went on, this odd dislike and this hatred for school didn't end. Neither did this behaviors, neither did the consequences. As time went on, the consequences started turning into detentions and suspensions. Once a month, twice a month, once a week, twice a week. And cutting this down as short as I can. Throughout all this time, it led up to me going into the administration office and just exploding on them. And simply putting this, telling them my education I was getting was BS. I didn't like the way it was being taught. My actions were not as calm as I'm speaking now, and that it led to me being escorted out by the administration and the police officers, being told I just couldn't come back. And that was the eye-opening situation that I needed to find a style of education that I would thrive in and enjoy. I was introduced to Iowa Big my sophomore year. I learned about their mission to develop students who are makers, designers, storytellers, and social entrepreneurs by creating curriculum with businesses, nonprofits, and government agencies while solving real-world problems in our community. And that hit me, it clicked. Like, this is what I've needed. This is what I've been trying to express to educators all this time, as having a purpose for my education. So that's my story, and that's where I'm at now. Without Iowa Big, like I said, I don't think I'd be the person I am today, and I definitely wouldn't be sitting here talking in front of all of you, so.
Okay. At my old school, if we were working on a topic and I already had it, I already mastered it, that means that I had to wait on everyone else to understand it until I moved on to the next topic, because I was ready for the next topic every time. I had to wait on the other people because they were not really understanding. But when I came to my current school, they told me that I could move to the next topic. I could stay on this topic if I want to learn more about it. But I decided to go to the next topic, and it felt really good because I finally got a choice of what I wanted to do. But at my old school, I really didn't have a choice of what I wanted to do, and it really didn't feel fair at all. It's so cute.
Okay, so I was in traditional school for preschool all the way to fourth grade, half of the fourth grade year at least. When I got to student-centered learning, it felt amazing, but I was a little bit confused. I mean, you weren't being told what to do. And when someone doesn't tell you what to do, you get confused at what you're supposed to be doing. So it was just a matter of, wait, am I supposed to be doing this or this? And I ended up getting help from one of my peers or scholars, as we call them, and it was amazing just to know that I was in control, because at my other school, we really had no option of what to do other than what the teachers told us. And it's amazing to be free and do things, and it matters to me because kids or children do need we need freedom. I mean, we have to be able to explore other things other than just homework, go to school, do work, come back home, do homework. We have to be able to do projects, hand-on stuff, because let's just be honest, kids are gonna get uninterested, we're gonna start falling off topic, and we're not really gonna listen to what you're saying.
So, you have met our learners, and I am now going to tell you that our panel is going to look a little bit different. So I have a few questions, and we're hopefully going to have a brief conversation. You can text questions via Twitter to hashtag iNACOL17, and somebody will be monitoring that account, and they will come and bring us questions at some point. And then, because these are learner-centered learners, they said, why don't we get to ask the audience questions? And so we have two questions that Kiana and Jada are going to read out to you now. And about 10 to 12 minutes before the end of our time together, there will be mics out in the audience for you to just stand up and share some of your thoughts or responses to their questions, which will then turn back to them to see what they think. So hopefully that's clear. Kiana, Jada, do you want to read the 2 questions? Do you want to start?
Oh, okay, my question, I guess I'll go first with my question. My question was, why don't you think other schools aren't doing this already? And what are you afraid this will do to traditional schools, and what will happen?
And my question was, when you think back on your own education, do you feel that that actually prepared you for life? And how could it have been better?
So, very easy questions.
They-
So let's start. All of you talked about in your introduction about agency, right? This idea of agency, and we sort of have sometimes false agency. Like you can do this piece of paper or this piece of paper. Can you talk about agency in your learning environment? What it felt like to get it, and what that process was to sort of become more comfortable owning your learning.
I'd say at Iowa Big, it's passion-driven. You're asked and basically required to do projects you're passionate about. Passion drives learning. And that was odd for me because I'm given then the freedom to choose what I'm learning about. And that's a large freedom. So that's some agency we have. And then also, if you heard my speech, I'm in a unique spot right now where my schedule is fundamentally built on my personal needs and interests. There are no bells or teachers telling me when to switch my subjects or when to go to the next class. I pick how my school day works. I pick when I'm doing my work. That's a couple of examples.
That's great, and I'm just gonna ask one question, then I hope all of you will build on it, but what was it like? Like, did you land there the first day and you're like, this is great, I've got this, or did you not? What was that process like tomorrow? And then I can go ahead and Vanilla, I think you.
At Iowa Big, we call it airlocking. I just froze up. I didn't really know what to do. It was not an easy transition. Like I said, from being in a system where I was pushed through for so long, where I didn't have agency at all, then being kicked out and then coming and saying, well, you now have the freedom. I didn't know what to do. It took me a while to realize, educators don't always have the answers to your questions. You have just as much capability of learning and knowing things as they do. So it took me a while to realize that I don't always need to go to these teachers for questions. I can go do this myself. And I'd say it took me maybe 6 weeks into the program to gain those learner agency skills, to start actually getting those learner agency skills. I'm still gaining learner agency, so.
For Lindsay High School, agency was right on there. So right away when I went to high school, freshman year, I was part of the Academy of Engineering. So what happened there was they started a competition, which they've already previously had in a different city, in a bigger city. And they gave us a chance to grow our knowledge on what we learned in our engineering classes. So what this project was basically about, gave us more agency, of course. It was more into like the real world context. And we had to design a sustainable shelter and a tiny house for the homeless people. And when I heard about this project, I was like, oh my goodness. I'm in engineering class, but instead of just doing mechanics and using machines and just writing papers and just leaving all the knowledge of engineering just in that class, I was actually able to change somebody else's future, somebody else's needs. And those were the homeless people in another bigger city. I was able to work with other engineering industries, architecture industries, education industries, health industries, and I was able to grow my knowledge out of them. Because I was not only talking to my educators or learning facilitators at our own school, but we were talking to other mentors around the whole state. And I feel like this agency is really, really important because that knowledge matters. The knowledge that you're actually practically using in your own life, that knowledge is gonna stay with you. The knowledge that you leave in classroom and never use it, there was no use of ever learning it. So I think that's one of the most important things about agency, giving you freedom and actually using where you can use it in your life.
Now I'm gonna build on this a little bit, and Jada and Kiana and Vanilla, you have both, we talked about failure and the role of failure in your learning, because sometimes the fear of failure is what stops adults from letting go. So talk to us about the role of failure in your learning.
I really don't think about failure, because there really is no such thing as failure at my school, because you always have room to grow. If you are like the top student in your classroom, you are still growing with knowledge. You're never done learning. I remember at my old school, we would take tests, and if I was done already, the teacher would say, "Oh, take a nap," or "Oh, play it on your iPad." But I really thought, this isn't really learning. So when I got to my current school, when I was done with my test, they told me, read a book, get on an educational website. I said, oh, okay, this is better than my old school. So it really made me feel excited about learning.
Thanks.
Okay, so at my old school, basically failure, what our definition for failure was you don't get this topic. You're probably not ever gonna get this topic. No. And now my definition of failure has changed, and I hope theirs changes too. My definition of failure now is failure is an option. If you fail, it doesn't really necessarily mean, oh, you're doomed, you don't get the topic. It means you don't get this topic right now, but you will later. And I think we just basically build on failure. Failure is a foundation for better learning, and you have to fail to succeed.
At my old school, my traditional high school, like Kiana said, failure just meant you didn't get it, and then it's gonna make a huge mark on your transcript saying, okay, yeah, everything else, she didn't get this one thing. It's gonna ruin her entire future, just so you know. But going to Pike Road, since it's student-centered learning, so like when you fail, doesn't mean you actually fail. It means you're like done with it, because you can't fail yourself. Because at Pike Road, it just means that you failed this one thing because the way that your teacher, that the teacher was, teaching it to you, it just wasn't the way that you would understand. So with failure, it just means that you talk to your teacher and you tell them, yeah, what you were doing wasn't working for me, so can I just do this other thing that I know I can do, that I know I can show you that, like, I got this, I just didn't get it in the way you were teaching me. So right now, my definition of failure just meant that I didn't get this. I didn't get it then on this one path, in this one direction, so I just need to change up a bit and go into another direction, one that would work better for me, one that would help me move forward rather than just hitting a stoplight and just staying there.
This one.
I think they've all hit it pretty well. One thing at Iowa Big is, even when you fail, you had learning along the way. So really, because you failed at the end of a project doesn't mean you really failed. And then you learn from your failures, so.
And I would probably like to add, for LHS, failure actually means when you did not use that knowledge and implement it, or you're not trying to learn, that's called failure. Just because you maybe didn't pass a test or something, that's not failure. Failure is when you're not even trying to learn about it, when you don't care about what's going on. That's real failure, because you're cheating your own self. Success is because of failure. If you're an athlete, if you're an actor, if you're a singer, you have to fail so many times just to get to that rank. You have to fail so many things in life just to be successful. Not everybody has a perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. We all go through struggles. That means we all go through failures in life. But real failure is if you fail at something and you don't even try to get up. That's called real failure.
So I want to ask you all about how you get to demonstrate your learning. Right, so we often think it's about paper and pencil and taking a test, but I know, Jada, you had examples, and Manila, I think you did, about how you get to choose not only what you learn, but how you show what you know.
Well, at the beginning of the year, the teachers will give you this paper that you fill out, and they'll tell you, like, it'll show if you're an audio learner, a visual learner, or a hands-on learner. And that really gives the teacher ideas of how they can give you work or projects to do. So it'll be interesting, and you don't feel that you're being like, so you don't feel like this isn't interesting or anything. Mm-hmm. They get that, and then they try to make it fun, try to make that topic fun by how you learn.
That's great.
At Pike Road, we were given like a lot of options because we as individuals, we learn in different ways. The teachers, they would give us the topic, like this is what you're supposed to learn. And so at the end of the project, you need to show us how you learned this. And like for my friends and I, we learned very different ways, and we had different end projects. Like one of my friends had wrote a story. Another one wrote a song about the topic. For me, since I'm passionate about reading and writing, I wrote different poems. It was about like different the wars, and I never really understood what those wars were about until I put them in writing, put them in poetry in a way that I would understand it. So now if you ask me about, I don't know, about the 6 wars, if you ask me about those wars, I would be an expert on that because I was able to dissect the information and put them in a format, a simpler format that I could process through easily. And that's how it is at Pike Road. You take the bundle of information and you downsize it so that you're able to process it better, easier, and it's more efficient for you.
Great. So we have a question. We have some questions from the audience, and I was hoping to segue one of these because we haven't talked about your teachers and sort of the role of the adults in your learning. The specific question somebody asked is, what's the most powerful thing your teachers have done to interest you in your learning? What advice do you have for the teachers out in the audience? But then I also wonder if you can speak to who your teachers are to you in your environment.
My teachers are friends and not just people who will give you work to keep you busy. Because one of my teachers, she's always like, when we get work and a student's like, wait, is this for a grade? She's like, I don't give you busy work. You're getting busy work for it. But teachers to me are friends because they are helping us by making sure we're never doing something for just no reason at all. And it's always going to help us grow. Because in this world, you have to grow. There's really no place where you can be like, oh, I don't know this thing. Oh, well, forget it. You got to learn it one day or another, and it's easier to learn it before coming to a challenge that makes you imply it.
Thanks.
Going off of that, definitely my teachers are kind of like my friends, because for a friend is someone that's always there to pick you up whenever you're down, and that's how my teachers are at my school. Whenever one of the learners, whenever we feel this is the end, we've definitely failed this, we're never going to get this, there's always a teacher there, our lead learners, we call them, that will encourage us, that will build us up and say this is never the end, because there is no roadblock to success. Because you can always grow, and definitely the teachers at my school, my friends, my mentors, are always there to build me up whenever I'm down, and they're just really amazing people.
So at our learning environments, we do not call teachers teachers. and we do not call students students. We call our teachers learning facilitators, and we call our students learners. And people might think, okay, who cares? Like you're just changing a word and it means the same thing. It does not mean the same thing. Because when somebody's talking, we paint a picture in our brain, don't we? We all paint a picture of, okay, a teacher does this, a student does this. And when we hear the word student, we paint a picture of a student sitting on a desk, holding a pencil and a paper and doing tests. But when we hear the word learner or the learning facilitator, we paint a way different picture. Learning facilitators, they actually facilitate the learning. They do not know everything, so they just facilitate you and give you a path. And it's your duty, a learner's duty, to actually take that path and take it somewhere else beautiful. And my relationship with the learning facilitators is amazing. They're like family. Just this Sunday, I got a call from my learning facilitator on a Sunday. I don't think a teacher will call any student on a Sunday just to make sure how they're doing if they feel overwhelmed. Okay, you're going on a Florida trip. Do you feel overwhelmed? You have all these college applications. Do you need help with this? Do you need help with that before you go on your trip? And he called me on a Sunday. Then I have a math learning facilitator for one of the engineering projects. We had to build a sustainable shelter for the homeless. And it was all 10 interns and then the project manager. But he stood there 10 o'clock every night after school. It didn't matter if he had a knee surgery, didn't matter if his body could not physically tell us where to put everything. But he was there every day, 10 o'clock after school, helping us with our project so all those homeless people can get a house. He did not care how long he stayed after school. He made sure that we learn the way we wanted to learn. And that's the relationship we have with our LFs, that they're always there for us.
I agree with Kiana and Vanilla when they said that the teachers are like your friends, because at my current school, if you're feeling sad or something and you don't feel okay, then the teacher will go out of their way, stop what they're doing, and take you aside and ask what's wrong. They'll get to the bottom of what's wrong and try to help you feel better. But at my old school, if you were feeling down, they'll wait until after class to ask what was going on, and by then you'd be okay by then. So what's the point of asking then?
So, I can't believe we're almost at this time, but we're at about 12 minutes. So I am going to ask one more question, but while we do, there are going to be microphones out in the audience. And Jada and Kiana, could you once again read the questions that you had for our audience? And for those of you who'd like to offer some responses, and then we'll get to a couple more audience questions.
Okay, my question from all of us was, why do you think other schools aren't already doing this, and what are you afraid this will change and how it will affect traditional learning?
And my question was, when you think back on your own education, do you feel that it actually prepares you for life? And if not so, how could you make it, how would you have made it feel better?
All right, so we had one more question while we're waiting for folks' response, but now that you've experienced student-centered education, what would you say to a teacher who doesn't teach that way? So think maybe going back to, not in a mean way, Jamar, but what would you say to a teacher, and you actually straddle both worlds because you spend part of your time at Iowa Bay.
I did. Yeah, I was in a really unique situation, especially at the beginning of my sophomore year. We had worked some things out where they didn't offer geometry at Iowa Big, and I needed that for my transcript. And so we worked some things out, and I was able to take that traditional class at the high school. And it was unique, because going from the traditional high school then to a learner-centered program being completely different, and the teaching and the facilitation. I just remind me of the question I had.
It's, what would you say to a teacher who doesn't teach that way, or somebody in a more traditional?
I spoke very highly of Big. And they'd always ask me what was the big difference, and I don't know. It was really, I expressed really just being the relationships with my educators is what I expressed with them. The difference that I had the relationships I had with them at the traditional education and the relationships I have at Iowa Big made the world of a difference in my learning. Being able to be transparent and them understanding my uniqueness, my strengths, my weaknesses, really helped in my learning process. So that's probably the biggest thing I expressed to them.
Anything else?
I would tell them, figure out what your students like. They're people just like you, except you're a little older. No offense. And figure out what they're interested in and try to find ways to make that fun and a way of learning at the same time. And always try to make sure that everyone is feeling included and everyone is happy with how they're learning.
I agree with Jada. Yeah, don't just go up to the classroom and be like, read straight out of a book. Oh, the book says you have to do this first, then do that. You have to personalize it a little bit because some students are gonna sit there and be like, what did you say? I don't understand. And then if you just say, oh, you'll understand later, they still probably won't end up getting it. It might be hard to like switch your giving of the learning, but once you do, you will see a big difference. Students will become more interested in what you're saying, and it is way easier to teach a student because if they're interested, then they're not over here fiddling with a pen or plucking their neighbor or over here talking or whispering. They're paying attention to what you're saying because, well, it's interesting. Find out what they like, their interest. Like, I love science, hands-on projects. If they like that, give them a hand-on project, not just pencil and paper. Not that kind of hand-on, at least.
Great. All right. So if you have questions, if you can raise your hand, and I'm going to try and point to people. Are you over there? Okay. Over there?
Hi, my name's Andy, and I'm from APAS Educational Group, and I just wanted to say that my wish is for every teacher in America to get to hear what you guys just said, because I think that many teachers are afraid of failure, even despite what you guys said, which I think is so right. Teachers don't want to fail. They're afraid of it. And therefore, they think that if they hold tightly to the power in the classroom, not letting students have the kinds of voice that you guys have so eloquently demonstrated today, they're not going to be intellectually overpowered. And that's what they're afraid of.
Thank you. Anybody else?
First of all, it's very nice to meet all of you. I was incredibly impressed by how well-spoken you were and just how knowledgeable. You had asked what our educational experience is like. I actually teach at the high school I graduated from. And when I was there, it was a very different high school. There were a handful of exceptional teachers who did exactly what your teachers did. And there was a lot of worksheets, and there was a lot of waiting on the test to be over. And when I left my hometown, I heard a lot of whispers about, well, I heard there's different teachers there now, and there's different administration now, and they're doing cool things and neat things. And I wanted to come back. I wanted to come back to that traditional high school because I wanted to be a part of what that renaissance was like. And I know you have a bad impression of a lot of your first schools, but what my challenge would be for you is, as adults, come back to that traditional school. Come back as the head of a nonprofit, come back as a teacher, because you can be a part, like I was and blessed with, of being a part of a renaissance of a new school that's very different than the one you left. And it's an honor to come back to your hometown and make it different than how you left it. And you seem like the incredible young people who are able to do that. So.
Thank you.
Someone here.
I would again like to say thank you very much for sharing your stories and your words of wisdom with us. My school story is very different, very similar to yours, where I was tracked I'm as old as dirt, so we go back a long way. But I was tracked, and so I was in a certain track, and you couldn't get out of that track. So we were given a test when we were 11 years old, and depending on how we did in that test, you were tracked towards success, or you were tracked towards failure. When I was 11 years old, things were going on in my life, and I failed miserably, so miserably on that test that I was in the bottom of the bottomest class you could be in. And that was going to be my track. So when I left school, I met with my careers officers, and they said, Wendy Harrison, you can go and work in a factory, or you can go work in a shop. But I said, I want to go to college. And it wasn't until I left school and I became responsible for my own learning that I started to be successful. And so that made me become what I am today, and an educator, because I swore that I would make a difference, you know, to all children and believe in them and to not have them have the same experience as I did. So thank you for sharing your stories. It's very inspiring to us.
Thank you. So I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to either reflect back or on what you just heard, and if there's any last thing that you'd like the educators, the advocates, the policymakers, the folks in this room to take away with them as they go back and work to do this in their own context. So why don't we start with you, Kiana?
Please don't walk away from this and let it not change your mind. Students out there don't have the chances that we have to come up here and tell you what to come to their school and say what they want and how they learn. They have to go to school like I once did and give worksheets in that don't really reflect what they've learned. So if you're a teacher or administrator or even just a parent, please walk away from here, go to your board members, your principals, and even fellow teachers, and tell them what you've heard, because this is important for students to take charge in their own learning.
Thanks, Kim.
I would like to tell all of you teachers that I would like all of you to carry this with you, that I have a choice of what I want to learn. I have a choice of what I want to, how I want to show that I've learned this. I can move on to the next thing without anyone telling me to stop. I am not stopped at all, and I keep excelling and excelling because I care about my education.
My biggest thing is having a relationship with your students. Letting your students learn what they're passionate about. Passion drives learning. And being transparent with your students are the couple key things that have really helped me in my past 2 years of my educational career. And just put trust in your students, because if I wasn't given the trust I was at Iowa Big, I wouldn't be doing any of the things I'm doing today. So, thank you guys.
Well, my big takeaway is for teachers to not be afraid to let their students take control of how they learn, because the fear is just something that you don't know, you don't understand it, so you kind of back away from it because you don't know what's going to happen. But when you let students take control of their own learning, like, you see that they actually like learning because they're learning the way that they were best. Like, they're growing mentally, emotionally, like they're being more mature. So for teachers who are afraid of students that are learning, like, don't be, because allowing your students to be who they are is not a bad thing.
I would like to first reflect on the answers that we've gotten from why we're afraid. I feel like when we see that failure, when we just heard right now that they were giving a failure test and a pass test, and if you fail forever. That's called failure. You're putting your future into failure. How are you going to get success in the future? If we're teachers, learning facilitators, we expect our youth to do something great because they are going to be our future. So why are we putting the present back like that? Why are we teaching them the same way that we've taught all the way in the past? The past, we've been teaching in such a weird way, in such a way where everybody has to do the same thing and they're not able to be successful in life. Don't let the past blackmail your present, for we all have a beautiful future. We cannot let this failure go on and on again. We can learn from this. It's not something that you're going to sleep and then the next morning we're all going to be successful in this program. Of course, it's going to take time. It took our district to take maybe 3-4 years to even get used to it. You're going to get failures on failures. Try different strategies. Try different concepts. But don't stop. That's what failure is. When you're trying to barely even get on the road and you stop and you press your brake. You don't even know how the whole path looks like yet. So please get onto this path and you will see such beautiful results. It's not going to happen. You're not going to sleep and wake up the next morning and be successful. It's going to take time. And I just want to thank everyone for giving us an opportunity to come here and share our perspective. And I hope everyone learns how this personalized learning system is great and implement it in their own districts. Thank you.
So I've been lucky over the last 10 years to get to go to hundreds of schools, and I get to go to schools that are learner-centered, and I can promise you that these panelists are not exceptional in that when we give kids a chance to become who they are, when we do unleash who they are all incredibly remarkable in the way that these young people are. And so thank you for listening. If you would like to hear more from learners, there is Story Slam that's taking place in the Northern Hemisphere at 2:15. Did a little plug for that. And please join me in thanking our panelists and also their families who are here. And thank you all for a really great session.
Thank you, Ulcca. Thank you to the students. You inspire us. In this room represents 2,700 ambassadors for the message you just gave to us. The number of students that these 2,700 people would influence are countless. Thousands, tens of thousands. In this room today may represent hundreds of thousands of students. Thank you. You inspired them. You inspire our work. Okay, wow. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please make sure that as we wrap up our symposium this afternoon that if you haven't done so already, and for the sessions you attend this afternoon, please give us that feedback on the mobile application. We really value that. We utilize it. It helps us each year in trying to make our symposium even bigger and better each year. I want to thank all the speakers over the last 2 days, and actually 3 days with the pre-conference speakers. Thank you for making our symposium what it is, just an awesome opportunity for all of us to come together, learn, network, and share with each other. The weather outside, I've been told, is very nice. So our Meet the Expert sessions, we have 2 of them this afternoon. One of them is getting ready to start in about 15 minutes, are outside. So I encourage you to go out and get some fresh air if you want to join those. Those are over on the Swan side. Thank you again. I started this just over an hour ago, thanking you for the work that you're doing. We cannot say that enough. We are so appreciative of the time that you've given to come here. It's humbling. It is truly humbling to see this many people dedicated to make what they talked about a reality. So thank you for doing that work. Enjoy the afternoon sessions and very safe travels home. Thank you. We'll see you in Nashville next year.